The sun was just beginning to settle behind the hills of Maplewood, casting golden streaks through the glass-paneled windows of Willow and Pine Book Cafe. A soft hum of indie music floated in the background, mingling with the rich aroma of roasted coffee and fresh pages. It was the kind of place that offered comfort in its quiet corners and serendipity between its bookshelves. Clara Whitmore, a children's book illustrator, sat at her usual table in the back alcove, sketchpad open, a steaming mug of chai beside her. Her auburn curls were tucked behind one ear, pencil poised in thought as she attempted to breathe life into her newest character, a shy hedgehog who dreamed of the ocean. Drawing brought her peace, but today she was restless. A sudden laugh broke her concentration, a deep, warm laugh that was unfamiliar to her regular haven. She glanced up, eyes scanning the cafe until they landed on the source. A man crouched beside a toppled stack of books near the travel section. A paper cup had splashed its contents across the floor, and in the chaos, a paperback titled Love and Other Maps lay soaked and defeated. Oh no, Clara murmured, instinctively rising with napkins in hand. She approached just as the man tried to dab the book with his scarf. "That's not going to work," she said gently. Crouching beside him, he looked up, startled, and for a moment Clara forgot what she was holding. His eyes were a calm, stormy, gray like clouds before a spring rain. "I wasn't trying to save it, just ... minimize the disaster," he said, a sheepish smile forming. "I'm not great at first impressions, apparently." Clara laughed softly, handing him a napkin. "I think you made a memorable one." "I'll take memorable," he said. "I'm Elias Moore." "Clara," she replied. Their hands brushed as he took the napkin. It was only a touch. But in that instant, everything else, the cafe, the spilled coffee, the damp book blurred around them. Clara had always lived with the echo of loss, an artist raised by her grandmother after her parents' sudden passing when she was 9. The pain of that absence never fully left her, though she'd learned to shape it into soft lines and whimsical stories. Her illustrations brought comfort to thousands of children, though she rarely shared just how much they had saved her first. She lived in a cozy flat above a bookstore, surrounded by sketch pads, pencil jars, and tiny figurines of woodland creatures. Her best-selling series featured a rabbit named Lumi, who wandered the world in search of home. What readers didn't know was that Lumi was Claire quiet, wide-eyed, and often afraid. Each day started with a stop at Willow and Pine, the cafe tucked between ivy-covered shops where she claimed the window seat like clockwork. It was there she felt most at peace. Most anonymous. Elias, by contrast, had wandered all his life. A travel writer who'd visited over 40 countries, he carried his late mother's compass in his jacket pocket and a leather-bound notebook in his satchel. After she passed away, writing no longer tasted the same. The thrill of distant cities dulled. The loneliness between trips deepened. When he arrived in Maplewood, town too small to be on most maps, he meant to stay only a few days, just long enough to reset. He rented a short-term studio above a florist shop, seeking quiet mornings and uneventful days. But when he stepped into Willow and Pine and saw Clara by the window, something inside him paused. She wasn't speaking, but she was saying something. Over time, their lives began to thread themselves into one another's routines. Clara would sketch for hours, watching the cafe fill and empty, while Elias scribbled story fragments on napkins. She noticed how he stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, even when it was cold. He noticed how she bit her lip when a drawing wasn't going well. They were opposites in many ways. Clara built her life in one place, safe in stillness. Elias kept moving, afraid of standing still. Yet they were tethered by something quiet and invisible. A shared sense of longing. As days unfolded, so did their layers. Elias learned Clara spent weekends reading to children at the library, her voice soft and melodic. Clara discovered Elias wrote letters to his late mother in the margins of books he left in different cafes around the world. He called them breadcrumbs for her spirit. Clara, who feared abandonment, started looking forward to seeing someone who kept showing up. Elias, who feared attachment, found himself wanting to stay for someone who didn't ask him to. Maplewood became their shared sanctuary. A town of quiet streets, warm porch lights, and neighbors who smiled with familiarity. The river trail, the art co-op, the night markets, all stitched their days together. Gently. Each was healing in their own way, and unknowingly in each other's presence. They weren't in love yet, but they were falling, slowly and beautifully. Days shortened and autumn deepened into a crisp gold. Clara and Elias had slipped into a quiet kind of closeness, unspoken, almost fragile. They rarely made plans, yet they always seemed to find each other at the cafe, their chairs inching closer with each visit. They began walking after coffee, down leaf-strewn sidewalks, sometimes toward the river. Do you ever feel like the world slows down when you're doing exactly what you were meant to? Clara asked one evening as they leaned on the old wooden bridge overlooking Maplewood Creek. Elias looked sideways at her, then down at her hand resting beside his. I feel that way now. It wasn't a declaration. It was an admission. Their first real outing outside the cafe was accidental. Clara was heading to the town's annual lantern walk, sketchpad in her bag, and Elias had just picked up takeout. When they ran into each other near the old chapel, he offered to walk her the rest of the way. That night, under a sky dusted with stars, lanterns floating across the lake like fireflies, Elias gently touched her shoulder and whispered, "Don't move." He fished a pen from his jacket and flipped her sketchpad to a blank page. "What are you doing?" she asked, capturing the moment before I forget how beautiful it is. She watched as he sketched, surprisingly well, the outline of a lake, the lanterns and her standing among them. "You draw. Used to?" "My mom taught me." He hesitated, then handed her the pad. "She always said I should draw the things that make me feel something." "That's you now." The silence that followed was heavy, meaningful. Clara smiled softly, and their hands brushed again. This time, she didn't pull away. They began to exchange pieces of themselves in small, tender ways. Clara showed Elias the first story she ever published. He shared a chapter from his unpublished memoir about his travels with his mother. "Why?" "Haven't you sent this in?" she asked. He shrugged. "I wasn't sure it mattered anymore." "It matters to me." Their glances turned longer, their smiles warmer. One morning, Clara walked in to find a single daisy in a water cup beside her seat. Elias appeared a moment later, pretending he hadn't seen it. "You're not very subtle," she said. "Good." Neither are daisies. They laughed together more easily now. She teased him about always ordering the same muffin. He teased her about her habit of talking to her illustrations. "Don't judge," she'd said once. Sometimes they talk. Back. One quiet afternoon, rain tapping on the windows, Clara shared the story behind her latest character, a brave little rabbit who couldn't stop running. "She's afraid if she stops, she'll have to feel everything," Clara said. Elias looked at her, really looked at her. "Are you talking about her or you?" The pause that followed made Clara's heart thrum against her ribs. "She's me," she said finally. "At least part of me." Elias reached out, his hand brushing hers slowly, this time intentionally. "You don't have to run here." In that moment, Clara felt seen. Not for the first time, but perhaps for the first time in a way that felt. Saved out one evening, Elias invited Clara to his sister's flower shop after hours. He'd set up a small table, surrounded by candles and mason jars filled with her favorite blooms, ranunculus and pale lavender. "You remembered?" She whispered. "I listen," he said simply. They ate takeout and talked about the things they feared the most. Clara spoke of abandonment, Elias of fading into the background after his mother's death. And there, between honesty and moonlight, the line between friendship and something more began to fade. You feel like home, Clara said, eyes glassy. Elias took her hand, this time holding it fully. That's all I've been searching for. The world disappeared in that moment. It was just the two of them. Clara never expected to fall so gently into something so real. And yet, with Elias, every moment felt like breathing more deeply than she had in years. Their days became marked not by grand events, but by quiet connections shared. Breakfast, stolen glances, handwritten notes tucked into library books. One evening, Elias invited Clara to an autumn fair held in the next town over. Beneath glowing strings of lights and the scent of roasted chestnuts, they played carnival games like children. Elias tried 3 times before winning her a plush fox, which she clutched to her chest like a treasure. Later, they sat on a hill overlooking the fair, watching the Ferris wheel light up the dark sky. Tell me something no one else knows, Clara whispered. Elias didn't hesitate. When my mom died, I stopped writing because I felt like the world didn't need my voice anymore. Clara turned toward him, her eyes full of quiet compassion. But the world needs voices like yours. I need yours. He smiled, soft and honest. Then maybe I'll start again with you in the story. Their relationship blossomed in layers. Some mornings, Elias would walk Clara to the cafe, carrying her bag while she chatted about her latest drawing. Other days, she'd surprise him with pastries and bring them to the flower shop's rooftop, so he could write in the open air. One evening, when Elias fell into a slump, unable to finish a piece about Italy, Clara brought over a box of art supplies and said, "Paint it instead." They sat side by side, watercoloring their memories, Elias' brush hesitating before moving steadily across the page, Clara offering color and encouragement. He painted Florence as a mosaic of gold, with winding streets and a little coffee shop in the corner. I went there every morning, he said. I always imagined sitting across from someone I loved. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. Now you don't have to imagine. At the winter market, Clara and Elias strolled between snow-dusted booths, sipping hot cocoa and admiring hand-carved ornaments. A small string quartet played holiday tunes, and beneath the glow of lanterns, Elias stopped walking. What? Clara asked. He took both her hands. Dance with me? There's no dance floor. There's music. That's all we need. They danced right there in the snow, clumsy and laughing, turning slowly beneath the falling flakes as though the world had paused just for them. In her journal that night, Clara wrote, asterisk, he made the cold feel warm. He made silence feel full. He made my heart feel held. Asterisk, the more they shared, the deeper they grew. Clara showed Elias the box of letters she'd written to her parents over the years, never sent, just folded and saved in a velvet pouch. They always felt close when I wrote, she explained. Even if they never read them, Elias kissed her knuckles. They would have been proud of the woman you've become. He told her about the time he almost stayed in Portugal, how he'd fallen in love with the light there, but something always pulled him home. I think now I know why, he added. It wasn't a place I missed. It was a person I hadn't met yet. Their first kiss came not with fanfare, but during a moment of quiet. They were sitting on Clara's window seat, watching the rain. Do you ever wonder how long we'll have this? She asked. Elias cupped her face gently. As long as you'll have me. And then he kissed her. Soft, sure, reverent. Time stilled. And when their hands touched once more, the world disappeared again, just like it did that first day. It began with a phone call. Elias had just poured Clara a cup of ginger tea when his phone vibrated on the calf table. The name on the screen made his breath hitch. Jonas Peterson, editor-in-chief, Global Roamer magazine. Clara noticed his change in expression. Everything okay? Elias stared at the phone, then answered. Hello? As Clara sipped her tea, she watched the light drain from his face. He ended the call and set the phone down slowly. That was my editor. He's offering me the lead feature for their anniversary issue, Elias said quietly. Clara smiled, excitement stirring. That's wonderful. They want me to travel 3 months across Europe. The smile faded from Clara's lips. Oh, he didn't have to explain. The silence said enough. It was an opportunity of a lifetime and the kind that didn't wait. Over the next few days, something unspoken crept between them. They still shared coffee, still walked the same routes, but their laughter felt shorter, their touches more hesitant, as though they were both trying not to count down the time they had left. One evening, Clara finally broke the silence. They were at her apartment, candles flickering low. Are you going to take it? I don't know, Elias said. It's what I used to dream about, but now it feels like it might cost me everything I didn't know I needed. Clara looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. And what is it you need? You, Elias said. But I'm scared I'll lose myself if I don't go. The honesty was like a crack in glass. I understand, she said, though it broke. Her heart thought the next day, Clara found herself unable to draw. Her hands hovered over the page. Trembling Dot at the cafe, she sat alone. Elias hadn't come. She stared at the empty seat across from her, and it felt like grief. Memories of their time. Together floated in the snow dancing, the lantern walk, the soft words beneath rain-light. Dot, she loved him. And that love now sat in a waiting room. Elias walked the river path alone that night. He looked at the stars overhead and asked his mother for a sign. All he heard was silence. All he felt was the ache of having found home and being asked to leave it. The next week passed slowly. Elias tried to work, to pack, to choose. Clara withdrew, focusing on deadlines and filling sketchbooks with rabbits who ran faster and faster but couldn't outrun their hearts. When they finally saw each other again, it was at the river bridge, the same place where their fingers had first lingered in understanding. Elias stood there, hands in pockets. I leave next Friday. Clara nodded. I figured. I still don't know if it's the right choice. She bit her lip. Sometimes there isn't a right choice, just one that you have to live with. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't let it linger. I should go, she said, tears threatening Clara, but she was already walking away. It wasn't anger that pulled her. It was fear. Fear that she'd given her heart to someone who couldn't stay. The Friday Elias was supposed to leave arrived with overcast skies and a quiet wind. Clara stood inside willow and pine, her hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold long ago. The clock behind the counter ticked forward. 10:04 a.m. She imagined Elias boarding a train, suitcase in hand, journal tucked under his arm. Every sound felt distant, every color muted. Then the bell above the door rang. She turned. There he was. Elias. Soaked from the rain, breathless, eyes searching. Clara, he said, voice cracking. Her heart stopped. What are you doing here? I couldn't go. Tears brimmed in her eyes. I sat at the platform, Elias said. Listened to the train pull in. Thought about what it meant to leave. And I realized I've spent my life running toward places, hoping to feel at home. But it wasn't a place I needed. He took a step closer. It was a person. Clara stared at him, trembling. I choose you, Elias whispered. I choose us, even if I write fewer stories. Even if I disappoint someone across the world. You're the chapter one never knew I needed to write. Clara let out a breath that had been locked in her chest all week. You're not disappointing anyone. You're finding something bigger. She took a step forward, closing the space between them. He reached for her hands. When their fingers touched, the world disappeared. Stay, she said. I'm already home. She leaned forward and kissed him, full of relief, love, and everything unsaid. The cafe blurred around them. Time stood still, and just like that, their story turned the page. The weeks that followed were filled with a kind of quiet joy Clara and Elias had never known before. It wasn't perfect. Some days were still clouded by doubt, others by deadlines, but it was real and it was theirs. Elias began writing again, not travel essays or city reviews, but stories rooted in feeling. One morning, he handed Clara the first draft of an essay titled The Woman Who Stopped Time. "You," he said softly. "You're the story." Clara read it in one sitting, eyes misting over. "It's beautiful. You're writing from your heart now." He nodded, because I finally found where it is. She framed his manuscript's title page and hung it in her apartment. Right beside her latest illustration, a watercolor of two hands reaching for each other over a coffee cup. They took small steps forward together. Elias moved into a sunlit apartment 2 floors below Clara's, where they could still hear each other's footsteps on the ceiling. On weekends, they'd host friends for brunch in the book cafe's back room. On Sundays, they'd visit the park to read quietly on a blanket of leaves and sky. The cafe, always their place, had now become a landmark of their love, one chilly morning. The owner surprised them with a new drink on the chalkboard menu, the disappearing world latte, for when all that matters is the hand in yours. Clara had laughed until she cried. Elias kissed her forehead and said, "That's us," immortalized in foam. Months passed, and so did seasons stop in spring. Clara's new book launched to quiet acclaim readers, touched by the brave rabbit who learned to stop running. The dedication read, "To the one who made me feel safe enough to stand still." Elias's essays found a new home in a heartfelt monthly column. He called it Wanderings Close to Home. His stories explored love, healing, and the places that shape us not through travel, but through presence. One evening, on the anniversary of the day they met, Elias surprised Clara with a visit to the very bridge where their fingers first touched. He carried a small book with a handmade leather cover. Inside were stories, little vignettes from every moment they'd shared. The spilled coffee, the lantern walk, the dance in the snow. On the last page, in his looping script, were the words, "Will you keep writing this story with me for the rest of our lives?" He knelt, heart in his eyes, a ring in hand. Clara laughed through tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times." He slipped the ring on her finger. When they embraced, the world once again disappeared.